Good afternoon. Welcome to you all to It's for Ministry this Wednesday at noon. It'll be a fairly short live stream today. I have a funeral to conduct later on this afternoon. And that got me thinking about how things have changed over the years. I have conducted something like 1,250 funerals over the last 30 years or so. The majority of them during my first 8 years in ministry. But the very first funeral service that I ever conducted was that of a great uncle of mine. And it was a great privilege to be invited to take the service, but one I will always remember as my first. And part of what has allowed it to be memorable is that it was recorded. Long story short, but some of the family were not able to be there, and a cousin of mine had spoken to the funeral directors and arranged that the service be recorded. He was probably right not to let me know before the event, but when I heard afterwards, I was mortified. Excuse the pun. It seemed to me rather strange, if not abhorrent, to record a funeral service. And it was recorded in one of these. Do you remember them? And I remember saying that after those who had wanted to hear the recording had heard it, then maybe the recording should be destroyed. And years later, when my parents were moving house and things were being cleared out, I was reunited with the audio tape. I did listen to it and concluded that it wasn't bad for a first one. But there were certainly things that I would have done and said differently after the passing of years of experience. But it also brought home to me just how much the use of technology has changed. And over the years, I've often made audio recordings of funeral services when some of the family haven't been able to be there, maybe because of distance or illness. And I've often just used a voice recorder, a Tascam device. I think it cost me about £150 about a decade ago, but I still often use it and will be recording the funeral service today. Simply having that on the lectern, it does a really good job of picking up the audio. And of course, more recently, during COVID times, there have been video recordings of funeral services, and how strange that would have seemed for so many reasons 30 years ago. Last week, there was a service when I was wanting to record just the audio of part of the service, and I thought I had put the Tascam voice recorder into my briefcase. I actually had, but I just couldn't find it at the time. But what I was able to do was just use the smartphone. And there's an app which I have on the phone, Voice Recorder Pro. And it is free. $5.99 will remove all the adverts from it. But as it describes it there, a fully featured sound recorder. And it is a very capable, very stable app that will record audio. And again, just placing the smartphone on the lectern, on the table in front of you, it does a really good job of recording the audio. Over the years, I have often dabbled with podcasting, and the Linked Parishes podcast has been a thing somewhat erratically produced over recent years, and for the last 75 weeks has carried the audio recordings of our weekly video worship. And the podcast is available listed on iTunes, so the Apple podcast app will carry it. And every now and again I hear of folk, particularly those that enjoy listening to podcasts on a commute, or maybe as they're lying in bed trying to get to sleep, or wakening up in the morning and listening to a podcast. And just recently, I saw an email that said that Amazon Music and Audible, which of course is owned by Amazon, are now carrying podcasts. I think they have been for a wee while. And at podcasters.amazon.com, you can submit the RSS feed for the podcast, and it will appear on Amazon Music. And so one of the things that means is that you can, well, let me just show you a wee video clip and you'll see what I mean. Play the latest episode of the Linked Parishes podcast.
Getting the Linked Parishes from Amazon Music. Resuming the latest episode, Sunday 29th of August 2021.
Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning. Very warm welcome to you all whenever you are sharing in our worship here from the West Highland Peninsulas. Alexa, play the previous episode.
Resuming Sunday the 20th.
So, the Linked Parishes podcast is now on Amazon Music, and I saw on Facebook today someone saying I'd seen this thing about saying to Alexa to play the Linked Parishes podcast and thought it was a joke, and tried it myself, and hey, it works. Yeah, it works. And all your Alexas within earshot are now maybe playing the Linked Parishes podcast. Years ago, when I first set that up, I always thought that it'd be good to share news stories from around the Linked Parishes of Ardgour, Strontian and Morvern. But there was also that sense in which we are linked with something so much bigger around the Church of Scotland and indeed beyond. And one of the things that I've often thought I'll do, and now that into all this a little more, maybe the Linked Parishes podcast will now link up with some other voices from around the church. So I hope that's been helpful. Maybe inspired some of you to think about doing a little podcasting or a little more. And maybe one other thing just to mention, I always create the worship videos on Luma Fusion, and I can show you that there. Luma Fusion, an app on the Apple iPad, and that was some pictures and an audio recording. We had the moderator with us last Sunday, so it was on Sunday. I thought, where's the voice recorder? I can use the phone. Good recording there. But one of the things that LumaFusion allows you to do is to see down the bottom right of the screen there, when you are ready to share or export the video, one of the options also is audio only. So that's part of my Saturday night routine after the video has been prepared to output the audio, which then goes to the podcast. And until a few weeks ago, went to Twilio as well, for those who wanted to phone in. But I mentioned recently that's one of the changes that I've seen, that the use of the phone line is minimal, if not non-existent. And I've stopped doing that. There's a wee message if folk do phone up that says, here's a service from a few weeks ago, we've stopped updating this. If that's something you want to talk about, speak to the minister. So some thoughts there around audio and how we make that available for folk. Well, I've got some other work to do, and I'm sure you do as well. And you'll see me, I won't see you, next Wednesday at noon. Goodbye, God bless, and know that God